Me addicted to sugar? Oh, maybe just a little. Sound familiar? If you've tried to cut back or even just want to understand why sugar has such a hold on you, this is where to start. I'm going to show you why it is so hard to quit, why it matters, and how you can finally take back some control without giving up everything you love. Okay, so why is sugar such a problem? Well, first of all, it is so easy to get too much. We shouldn't eat more than 25 grams, which is approximately 5 teaspoons of sugar a day. Now, a single can of Coke, and I'm not looking for any sort of zero sugar Coke. I'll talk about sugar alternatives at the end of this video. But a single can of Coke contains 44 grams. That is almost double your daily sugar allowance. So when you get above the 25 grams or 5 teaspoons a day, you're starting to do real damage to your body. Now, even a small tub of something like vanilla yogurt already contains 34 grams of added sugar, which is more than the 5 teaspoons. It's about 7 teaspoons a day. And if that's all you have, you're already over. Now, when it gets into the bloodstream, the sugar, it combines with fat or protein, and then it produces compounds that cause oxidative stress and inflammation. Now, inflammation is at the heart of so many diseases that we now see in the world. Now, it gets into the bloodstream really quickly. So sugar in itself, and this is the only bit of chemistry I'm going to talk to you about, but sugar is basically glucose. Now, glucose is the smallest molecule in the sugar family. So everything that is sugar, even like the sugar in fruit, which is fructose, needs to be broken down into glucose. That happens in the stomach, but mostly in the intestines. And normally with food, it needs to get to your intestines to be broken down into the smallest molecules that can then be absorbed through the gut wall into the bloodstream. Sugar is different. Because it's already in its smallest format, when it's in your mouth, it already gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So you can have a teaspoon of sugar, put it in your mouth, just let it sit there, and it gets straight into the bloodstream. Which is great when somebody has a serious hypoglycemic, which is low blood sugar level attack, because you give them a little bit of sugar and it very quickly increases their blood sugar level. But for most of us, that is not a good thing. We do not want it to go straight into the bloodstream. Now, high blood sugar levels, because when it gets into the bloodstream so quickly, it really raises your blood sugar levels very fast. And that can cause insulin resistance, because high blood sugar levels trigger the pancreas to produce insulin. And the insulin's role is to cut down the blood sugar levels. That stays in your body longer than the blood sugar levels are high. So you get this excess of insulin, and if you have excess insulin and you have that often, then your body becomes less able to respond to the insulin. So your body needs to produce more insulin to get the same results, and so that ends up producing inflammatory molecules and insulin resistance. Okay, so why is sugar such a problem? Well, first of all, it is so easy to get too much. We shouldn't eat more than 25 grams, which is approximately 5 teaspoons of sugar a day. Now, a single can of Coke, and I'm not looking for any sort of zero sugar Coke. I'll talk about sugar alternatives at the end of this video. But a single can of Coke contains 44 grams. That is almost double your daily sugar allowance. So when you get above the 25 grams or 5 teaspoons a day, you're starting to do real damage to your body. Now, even a small tub of something like vanilla yogurt already contains 34 grams of added sugar, which is more than the 5 teaspoons. It's about 7 teaspoons a day. And if that's all you have, you're already over. Now, when it gets into the bloodstream, the sugar, it combines with fat or protein, and then it produces compounds that cause oxidative stress and inflammation. Now, inflammation is at the heart of so many diseases that we now see in the world. Now, it gets into the bloodstream really quickly. So sugar in itself, and this is the only bit of chemistry I'm going to talk to you about, but sugar is basically glucose. Now, glucose is the smallest molecule in the sugar family. So everything that is sugar, even like the sugar in fruit, which is fructose, needs to be broken down into glucose. That happens in the stomach, but mostly in the intestines. And normally with food, it needs to get to your intestines to be broken down into the smallest molecules that can then be absorbed through the gut wall into the bloodstream. Sugar is different. Because it's already in its smallest format, when it's in your mouth, it already gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So you can have a teaspoon of sugar, put it in your mouth, just let it sit there, and it gets straight into the bloodstream. Which is great when somebody has a serious hypoglycemic, which is low blood sugar level attack, because you give them a little bit of sugar and it very quickly increases their blood sugar level. But for most of us, that is not a good thing. We do not want it to go straight into the bloodstream. Now, high blood sugar levels, because when it gets into the bloodstream so quickly, it really raises your blood sugar levels very fast. And that can cause insulin resistance, because high blood sugar levels trigger the pancreas to produce insulin. And the insulin's role is to cut down the blood sugar levels. That stays in your body longer than the blood sugar levels are high. So you get this excess of insulin, and if you have excess insulin and you have that often, then your body becomes less able to respond to the insulin. So your body needs to produce more insulin to get the same results, and so that ends up producing inflammatory molecules and insulin resistance. So what do you think? Is sugar addictive? Sugar addictions are real. Sugar activates the brain's reward response, and that produces dopamine. So when you have something with sugar, that gets labeled by the brain as a pleasurable, a positive experience, and that produces dopamine, and it's the dopamine hit that we get addicted to. So your brain makes the association with the sugar eating or the chocolate eating or the muffin eating or whatever it has, or the soft drink drinking or ice cream eating, whatever it is that has a lot of sugar in it. It associates that behavior, that eating behavior, with something positive, and that your brain then creates a preference for that behavior. And it's the dopamine that creates that association. The brain then wants sugar. The brain actually runs on glucose, but your body can make the glucose the brain needs from fat molecules and from protein. But we get lazy, and when we feed ourselves sugar, then that's quick food for the brain, so the brain quite likes it, and so the brain wants sugar. But to get the same dopamine hit that you get initially, you need more sugar, more than before. So if one piece of chocolate does it one day, then the next day, it's not that simple, but you kind of get the idea. The next day you need 2 pieces of chocolate to get the same dopamine hit and the same sense of, oh, that was that feels good. And the next day you need 3 pieces of chocolate, and before you know it, you need a whole block of chocolate, and then you need 2 blocks of chocolate, all to get that same dopamine hit. And that's where this addiction comes from. Now, you may think you're addicted to sugar, but here's a checklist of things that can give you an indicator that you might be addicted to sugar. For example, if you have a mid-afternoon slump, if you're just constantly fatigued, if you have coffee or tea, you really need a sweet treat to go with it. If you love your after dinner sweet treat and you feel like you haven't had a proper dinner without one. If you don't like bitter foods or greens, that's a clear indication of a sugar addiction. If you're a chocoholic, if you love your soft drinks, if you prefer sweet over savory, and I definitely I lean that way. I'm very strict with myself, but if you give me a chance, I go for the sweet stuff. If you love chewing gum, and again, at the end of the video, I'll talk to you a little bit more about why that might be. And if you love artificial sweeteners, those are some clear indicators that you are addicted to sugar. Okay, let's get to the crunch, right? How do you kick the sugar habit? And I want you to realize, first of all, so it is an addiction. And when you have an addiction, your brain will fight you all the way. You have trained your brain to go for this quick fix of energy, of brain food, if you like. So there's some things that are really helpful. The first one is to make sure that you have a breakfast that is high in protein. So if you saw my video a little while ago, I think it was last week's video about what I do when I have a bad day, I showed you my breakfast. So my breakfast consists of yogurt, full fat yogurt, and I'll do a separate video about fat and low fat and no fat and what you should really, really believe about fat. And so I have normal fat, full fat yogurt with some nuts and seeds and some fruit, but it's mostly protein, because protein, so you can also have eggs, or you can even have some eggs and bacon if you like, as long as you also add some plant-based foods to that, like mushrooms and tomatoes and if you can, avocado, things like that. The reason that that's so important is that it gets broken down. It takes a long time to get digested. And so you feel full, but it takes a long time. But it breaks down into its components, and your body will use what it needs to give your brain the glucose that it needs. And so you feel full, and so you don't need that sort of quick pick-me-up because you feel an energy slump because you get hungry. The other tip is to eat regularly. You should never feel hungry, and so you should learn to recognize the signs of hunger and have something to eat beforehand that contains healthy fats and protein. So some nuts and seeds, you could have a boiled egg, or you can have some dairy. So eat something that has fats and protein, because again, that keeps you feeling full, and then you are not triggered to look for something quick that is high in sugar. Now, when you eat fruit, don't ever eat fruit by itself. Now, fruit contains sugars, fructose, which is absolutely fine. Fruit also contains a whole bunch of healthy vitamins and some minerals. If you eat like an apple with the skin on, you get very good fiber. Oranges and other citrus also have lots of fiber. So there's a lot to gain from fruit. But what we often do is we just have a piece of fruit. I used to just have a banana, and and then feel really tired fairly quickly after, because that fructose is broken down. It's just two parts. It only needs one sort of action to break it into glucose. So again, it's absorbed really quickly into the bloodstream. Your blood sugar levels go up, but then they come down very quickly as well. So when you have fruit, you always need to have some protein or fat with it. So have some nuts and seeds to go with the fruit as well. Limit how much coffee and tea, black tea, green tea, don't underestimate, you have, because it contains caffeine, and caffeine changes how we perceive sweet and triggers a craving. This is if you feel like when you have a cup of coffee, you have to have sugar with it, or if you have a cup of tea and you need to have something sweet to go with it, like a biscuit, or it's because the caffeine triggers the craving for something sweet. Get enough sleep and manage stress. If you have trouble sleeping and you feel you don't get enough sleep, then you feel you'll need pick-me-up. So, we go to the sugar stuff because it gives you a quick hit. Fortunately, it also gives you a quick dip. And the same if you're stressed. And it might be good to think about, when you are stressed, do you go for the sugary stuff more often? And the same goes for limit or stop drinking alcohol. So alcohol is actually is broken down into sugar. And it also reduces your or it increases your need for sugar further down the list, especially when you come down off your alcohol, if you know what I mean. Avoid anything that is refined or white carbohydrates, like white rice, pasta, white bread. They all are high glycemic, which means they raise your blood sugar levels really quickly. So they spike your insulin, and then you get the insulin knocks down the blood sugar levels, but there's more insulin even after the blood sugar levels go down. You get that dip after, so you go woohoo, and then after straight away, and you've got all that insulin that causes further inflammation in your body. And inflammation, I'll do a separate video about inflammation and how bad it is for all of us, especially as we get older. And let's talk artificial sweetness. Remember right at the beginning, I talked about a can of Coke. And I know a lot of you go, no, but I have Coke Zero, or anything no sugar. Well, it still needs that sweetness. You have to think about, they still try to keep the same taste. And the way they do that is with artificial sweetness. If you have tea or coffee, and instead of sugar, you're using artificial sweeteners, stop it. What they do is they change your taste buds, and those taste buds get a higher tolerance for sweetness, which means you need more sweetness for your taste buds to register that there is sweetness. So you need more things with sugar in it. The other problem, and that comes back to inflammation, is these sweeteners are all chemicals that our bodies don't recognize as anything that they can do something with. So they do an awful lot of damage and create a lot of inflammation in your body as well, which and inflammation, just really briefly I'll talk about it a lot more in detail, but why I keep harping on about it is inflammation increases the risk for almost all diseases that we are faced with as we get older. So reducing inflammation is really going to help us age much better and be healthier much longer. And sugar is not a good partner in that. So, final tips for kicking the sugar habit and reducing the amount of sugar you have in your diet. My first tip is to go slow. Your brain will fight you all the way, and it's very difficult to trick your brain. I once talked to someone. I worked with him, and he drank a full bottle of soft drink, a 2 liter. I don't know what that is in um, non-metric system, but a 2 liter bottle of soft drink a day, and he wanted to reduce it because he said he realized he was putting on weight, probably other things in his diet as well, but the soft drink was something that he wanted to really reduce. And so he said, and I've tried to just drink something else, and I just can't. So what I suggested was to, when he gets his bottle for the day, to pour out on the first day, pour out a little bit before drinking, and then just drink the rest of the bottle as he normally would during the day. The next day, pour out a tiny bit more, and again, just drink the rest of the soft drink, because in probably a 2-week period, he would have ended, and as soon as he got to like only having half a bottle to drink, switch to a 1 liter bottle. Because that kind of tricks the brain into thinking that you're still drinking a full bottle. But to keep doing the same, pour out a little bit, so slowly reduce over time. And he was off the soft drink after 2 weeks. So, and he replaced it with water and milk. He discovered milk. And he said he felt so much better just by reducing it. So I didn't feel like he was struggling at all. So reduce instead of remove. I did a health program in the year 2000 where I learned so much about food and diet and what was healthy for me. And as a result, a few years later, I went back to school and studied nutritional medicine and ended up being a nutritionist, just because that interested me so much. For that program, we had to go cold turkey. And I used to joke that I had coffee with my sugar. So I would have 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day and lots of sugar in it. So it was very sweet. And tea, if I had black tea, I also had sugar in it. And I had lots of lollies, sweets, lots of biscuits, lots and lots of sugar in my diet. And I had to go cold turkey. It's a good thing I was single and I didn't have my daughter yet. But the poor people at work, I must have been horrible. It was so hard. Now when I work with people who try to, in this case, reduce the sugar from their diet, I always go, just go slowly. If I had to do it again, go from my sugar with my coffee with my sugar situation, I would, instead of, if I had 4 teaspoons of sugar in my coffee, I would go to 3.5, and then 3, and then 2.5, because you also need to change your how your taste buds react to what you have. And if they're expecting sugar and so used to sweet stuff, then they struggle with other foods. And the third tip that I have is really reflect on when do you crave sugar and plan an alternative. So if you know that you crave sugar with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, instead of having something like, if you crave, and you're used to having either a muffin or a biscuit or a piece of chocolate or 2 or 3 with that, look for something different. There's some foods that have a sweetish taste that can help. Almonds, for example, have a fairly sweet taste. So instead of having a biscuit, have a small handful of almonds and just nibble on that. Carrots have a sweet taste. You're even better off to have, and if that is not enough, have some fruit with fresh fruit, not in a muffin, not an apple muffin, That can help. Another tip is it can help to put some cinnamon, if you like it, cinnamon in your coffee, because cinnamon helps you to reduce your craving for sweet stuff. And we often put cinnamon in together with apple, which is great, but you also need some fat and protein. Remember, I said that earlier. Another thing that you can, if you know that you crave sugar at certain times of the day, start by having a glass of water. It's quite often, it's like, it can be dehydration that masks itself as needing something sweet. So dehydration can lead to that slump, that fatigue, and then we've learned to associate that with, I feel better if I have something sweet. Try a glass of water first, and not just a sip, but a good amount of water. You can add a little bit of lemon juice in it. If you're very brave, you can add a bit of apple cider vinegar to it, which gives you some good gut bacteria. Because one thing that I didn't mention, but that sugar does, it actually feeds the bad bacteria in your gut. So it affects your gut health. Just throwing that in there. So those are my final tips, and I hope that this has been helpful. So go into it expecting it to be difficult, but also give yourself the time to slowly reduce your sugar intake. It took you a long time to get here, so you might as well take some time to reduce it, because if you can't stick to your low sugar diet, then it's basically, this effort is for nothing. So make it as easy on yourself as possible, and accept the fact that you're addicted to sugar, which means that it's very easy to fall back into. One of the things, when my mum was still alive, she would come from the Netherlands to Australia and she would usually come for about 3 months every other year. And she always said, "Oh, I lose weight when I'm with you. Why do I lose weight when I'm with you?" And I went, "Because I don't buy anything that you shouldn't have." So that's one of my tricks to avoid easy access to anything with sugar, is I just don't have it in the house. So that if I really crave something sweet, I actually have to go to the shops, and I can't make that okay for myself. So just don't have it in the house, but have some alternatives that you know you can have when you feel like something as a pick-me-up. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you found helpful in this. But put some effort into it. And I know that some of you are very worried about the amount of sugar you have, and we're really interested in this video. So I hope this was helpful. And if there's anything else that you would like me to make videos on, just let me know in the comments. And if you've seen this for the first time, you're new here, and you like this kind of videos, make sure you subscribe so that you know when I make more videos about healthy eating from a nutritionist point of view. Thanks for watching. Bye.